Hello, I'm Sam Spivey from Authmentis, the local Reno band, and I am guest appearing here with Emily to talk to you about Neil Gaiman's Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader.
It was penciled by Andy Kubert. It was inked by Scott Williams. It was colored by Alex Sinclair, sorry, and it was lettered by Jared K. Fletcher.
Right.
Lots of people contributed.
Did you say Andy Kubert?
Yeah, he penciled it, yeah.
He did pencils. Very good penciler. Tell us what it's about, roughly.
Batman has died. And all of his friends and enemies throughout the years come together, and they're all giving their own versions of how he died. Most of them are taking credit for how he died, but not only are they taking credit for his death, they're telling everyone how they died because nobody's really sure. They are giving their views of him throughout history, and it's a really interesting perspective of Batman throughout the years. See his character grow. And more or less how he's perceived, but even Superman makes a brief cameo.
Everybody basically shows up at an open casket for Batman, and they all want to say their piece, and each person's thing they'd like to say pretty much has to do with how Batman died. A telling of the character as viewed from different people, and ultimately conveys that Batman was larger than life and a symbol to each and every one of the people that shows up at his funeral. Ultimately, that's what you'll probably take away from this as a whole. So it's really interesting to see Batman according to Catwoman, according to Alfred, the Joker, Clayface, even Robin shows up, and everybody has something different to say about Batman and what he meant to them and how they saw him as a person. And what really blew my mind about this story particularly was Alfred's version of Batman, which is...
Spoilers!
Yeah, spoilers. Alfred goes up and he talks about Batman, but mostly he talks about Bruce Wayne and how Bruce Wayne was devastated at the death of his parents, and that it basically completely crushed and destroyed him as a person, and he would go into these dark spells. Alfred is an actor, and he was an actor previous to being a butler for the Wayne family, and decides to use his acting talents, creates villains to distract Bruce Wayne and Batman, because they're the same guy, of course.
Spoilers!
Spoilers! Did I just give away his identity?
You did.
Shit. Sorry. Read this book. Anyway, he creates all of these characters and basically gives Bruce Wayne, Batman, puzzles to solve to kind of keep him distracted from the fact that his parents are dead and that he can't cope with it. Going so far as to even become, oh my god, the Joker. Can you believe that? My brain just went outside of my head when I read that. So, for me, this was the most powerful story in there because it's totally plausible in the story that Batman's just crazy and everybody else in his life is just enabling him.
And there's a take you don't normally see. This was, for some backstory to it, this was going to be the last two Batman. It's a two-part arc to put into one trade paperback. But it was going to be the last two Batman stories for however long. DC contacted him. He's worked with them off and on. He made some stuff for Spawn. He worked some Constantine stuff in. And so DC called him and asked him if he wanted to write the last two Batman stories. And he grew up being a Batman fan. When it eventually made its way over to England, he loved them. He loved the comics. He loved American comics. He loved the American television show, and it was always a dream of his. Batman, for you comic book nerds out there who've read Sandman, Batman even makes an appearance in the last Sandman comic, The Wake. He's at a funeral there, which I thought was really awesome, and I actually would have loved to see Morpheus or Daniel show up at his funeral. I might actually have to look at the faces in the crowd and see if they did. But they were going to be the last 2 Batman stories for a while until they decided to reboot them, which could have been however many years. And so he wanted to give Batman a really good send-off, and he wanted to give closure to fans who'd followed Batman for years. And he does a really good job. I found the little 2-part comic more moving than, we were talking about this earlier, more moving than any of the movies that have come out ever.
Yeah, and that's mostly because they kind of nail the character a little bit better.
What's really fun about it is that you don't just see Batman in one way. Like I was saying, you see different perceptions, but seeing different perceptions means you also see different costumes. You see different costumes from him, and you see different costumes from all of the bad guys. Their incarnations throughout the years. Gaiman and Kubert really wanted to give homage to the Batmans that had come before, so to speak, and so you see the characters morph within the perspective of others, which I thought was a really brilliant stylistic choice.
Yeah, so it's a really nice ride to kind of encompass Batman in all of his eras with all of his strong characteristics for his eras. Really gives you a nice flush character to end on, and they really make a good point of conveying that Batman is a symbol and that he's larger than his own life even. That Batman was always going to die because he chose to be the person he was.
And because he's mortal.
Well, yeah, there's that. He is a man. It really conveys that sense that Batman's a symbol for everybody, even his enemies. And that's something that I really feel like the Christopher Nolan movies tried and failed to do. If you wanted to be with the writers and directors of those Christopher Nolan movies and really feel like, yeah, you're right, he's supposed to be a symbol, you get that in this whatever happened to the Caped Crusader. And also, the last thing I'd like to say about this was really about Neil Gaiman. The guy's ridiculously talented. He's one of the only people I am aware of that can, as a writer, jump into somebody else's established universe, take control of it, and tell a story his way without compromising the content of the character or the universe that he is writing in. He did a really good job of that. Batman was Batman, and all of the other characters had this really nice depth, and hats off to Mr. Gaiman for once again coming through and showing that he can pretty much do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Most people, I think, doing an ending comic would have done the last stand of, and that's fine and it's cool. You see them go down as a hero and then they die and then they take the bad guys with them, and that's fine. But it is something that has been done, and there are a lot of ways that you could play the death of Batman. He chose to show not how Batman died, but what Batman was at his death. Which I thought was really brilliant and far more touching. It could have been a really cool action comic, like, oh, pow, bam, classic stuff. But instead, he chose to go with deeper stuff, and I'll have to read it 3 or 4 times, and I think you can get many layers of meaning from it, which I think is brilliant for a comic, and it's one of the reasons Sandman is so good as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare this ending of a superhero to the death of Superman, where they basically Superman and Doomsday punch each other to death because that's all they can do. This says how Batman died doesn't necessarily matter. There was no way he couldn't, but just because he's gone doesn't mean that what he meant is gone. So it was nice. It was a eulogy to a lost hero. And it did him way more justice. Yeah.
Yeah. Normally I have a segment in my reviews where I go, well, things I didn't like. I have no complaints about it. I think it was beautiful. I think it was touching. I think it was everything Batman was meant to be and Batman should be. And I'm just pick it up. This trade paperback version not only has Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, has 3 other comics written by Gaiman for Batman, as well as some behind-the-scenes sketches of them making Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. It's very good. Pick it up. Join me next week for the Subtle Knife review by Philip Pullman, the second book in his Dark Materials trilogy. Check the link in the description for all of his info, and I'll see you next week. Bye!